Hi, I'm Larry Puckett. Today we've got a couple of things to go over. First of all, I'm going to show you how I'm wiring this up so that when I get ready to install signals on the layout, I'll be able to just hook them right up without any problems or any delays. And that's a little bit of a complication, but I've never shown you guys in the past how to do that, so I need to do that for this particular situation because I will be doing signals here on the layout, and that requires installing occupancy detectors, and that requires special wiring. So I will go over that today. Then, after that, we're going to give the modules a test drive. So, let's get started with a look at how to go about doing the wiring for signals and occupancy detection. And then we'll move on to doing the test drive. Hit that little red subscribe button, and when the little bell comes up, click on it and click all. Now, as I said, I'm going to be installing occupancy detectors and signals on these modules, and that requires a little extra effort when it comes to doing the wiring, because there are basically three separate sets of tracks on these modules. We have the northbound main, we have the southbound main line, and then we have all this other trackage here on the back that will be for the switching operations to the various industries. And one thing I don't want to have is a red light to pop up for the southbound main or the northbound main simply because there's a switcher operating on one of these backtracks. Similarly, I don't want a red signal on the southbound main because there's a train on the northbound main, and vice versa. So that requires wiring each of these up with their own electrically isolated wires. So come on, I'm going to flip this baby back on its side, and I'll show you what I mean by how to go about wiring that up. Okay, so I've got the module up on its back here, and everything is wired up. Now this here is the accessory power bus, and you can see there's a red and a black wire going to each switch machine. So that powers and controls those, and that's all that's being used for right now. In the future, it could be used for other accessories, but for right now, it's just for each switch machine. Now, what about the track wires? Well, this is the DCC power bus right here. You've seen that before. And you can see that I've got red wires. There's a red wire here, a red wire here, a red wire here, and those go directly to the copper wire, the red copper wire in the DCC power bus. So they feed the rear rail on all of these pieces of track. And it's the same all the way through here. Now what's different though is the black wires. You see there's no black wires attached directly to this except this one right here, and that goes to the tracks on one of the sidings. So they can be powered directly. When it comes to the northbound and the southbound main lines though, they have to be isolated from those sidings, and they have to be isolated from one another in order to get proper detection and signals. So what we've got here then is a blue and a white wire that I've installed parallel alongside of our DCC power bus. And those will eventually be attached directly to the silver wire in the power bus itself. And that's normally what the black wire would be attached to. If you look back at the wiring that we did previously, that's how I said I was going to set it up. Eventually, once they're delivered, the detector circuit boards will be connected, one on the blue wire and one on the white wire. So we'll have a detector for each. And the blue wire, which goes through here, is attached to the northbound main line. That's the main line on the front edge of the layout. The white wire goes to the southbound main line. And the southbound main line is the rear or the second set of rails on the layout. So that's southbound and northbound. So for example, if you have a locomotive on the northbound main line, power will flow out through the detector, through this blue wire, up to the rear rail on that front track, the northbound main line, and then complete the circuit through the red wire to the power bus. Then the same thing happens for the white wire, and that's on the southbound main line. So there will be a separate detector here. Power will flow through the detector, through the white wire, through the black wire to that southbound main line, and then it will return through the red wire, which comes out under here and is attached right at this point here. So that's how it works. You've got two separate detection circuit boards will be right here, and each one will go to the blue wire, one the white wire, and those will go to the respective northbound and southbound main lines. So they will be powered separately from the switching tracks on the backside of the layout. And I'll show you this again once the detectors come in and we're ready to install the signals on the layout. Now, I hope that makes sense, but it's very complicated to explain it, and hopefully in the future when we actually install everything and get those detectors installed and the signals installed, it will be clearer. Now, when it comes to a single track main line, it's not a problem, as long as you don't have any other switching going on the side. If it's just a single track main line coming down through the module, then everything can be attached directly to a power bus with one wire fed through a detector. That's very simple. And we'll be doing that on the corner module here and also on the reverse loops. But that'll be a while before we get around to doing those. So just be aware, if you're dealing with a double track main line, it gets much more complicated because you have to isolate the main lines from each other and from anything else going on in that module or in that block. And it can be multiple modules in a block. So that's all I can think of that I want to tell you about that for right now. Okay, so that's it for that. Let's get it up on the ground and see how it runs. Okay, so here are the two modules ready to be joined together. People had asked me about making these bus connections, so let me show you. This is the accessory bus back here in the background. This is the DCC power bus here in the front, and also the occupancy detection wiring. So the first thing I'm going to do is make this connection back here between these two here, and we'll feed those through in a minute. And let's see, let's pull this one and do the detection wires, and then finally the DCC power bus. And that's all there is to it. Now, I'll bring them together and slide them in like that. Same thing here, slide one through, and then feed the second through. And now the two modules are joined together. The polarities are correct, so now let's see if we can get it to run. Let's go ahead and give it a test drive. So I'm going to bring you in here a little bit closer so you can actually see the locomotive running here, and we'll see how it works. Okay, for this test run, I've got a Southern Railway SW1 switcher there in front of the passenger station, and he's got a Railway Express reefer ready to deliver it down to the Railway Express office all the way down at the far end here of the module. So let's crank it up and get it moving. And when we get down to the double crossover, we'll stop and wait for the guy in the tower to throw the switch for him. Okay, so the switches for the double crossover have been thrown. And now he's going to come on into the Railway Express track, and we'll spot that car down here. Okay, let's uncouple here. I haven't got the magnets installed yet, so we have to do it manually. Okay, now that we've dropped off the reefer, let's run back down to the meatpacking plant. And the guy in the tower has already thrown the switches for the double crossover. So he should be able to run right through there and head down the switching lead down to that meatpacking plant there in the background. Okay, let's run him back out here. So we'll leave him parked out here. That should give you a pretty good idea of what we'll be doing here in the future with operations here on the modules. We'll be able to run trains on the main lines, north and southbound, while a switcher is working back in the industries, switching the meat packing plant and whatever other industries we end up putting in back there on that back section. So that's another project that will be coming on. Fortunately, I had the building that is the meat packing plant and the Railway Express office left over from the old Piedmont Southern, so I was able to just put those in here. But got to start building on some of those others now. Well, that's a wrap for today's video. Hopefully I didn't overload you with all that talk about the special wiring that's required for setting up signals and detection here on the modules. It is a lot simpler when it comes around to single track main lines, but when it comes to double track main lines and industrial areas, it does get a little bit more complicated as I showed you. Hopefully I was clear with how I went about doing that wiring and what's required. If not, fill the comments out and I'll try to answer whatever questions you have. In the meantime, have a great weekend and a great week, and I'll see you here next week with another look at the modules. Bye now.